Century Teaching.
Thank you. I decided to talk about this today because I thought it would be a bit of a lark, really. Sustainable 21st century teaching, to me, when I said it, seemed a little bit like, oh, we show some cool stuff in class and that would be great. When I really started thinking about it a little bit, I went into a little bit of depth and did some Googling and came up with, hopefully this works, this quote, which really sort of inspired me really to put a bit more effort into this and go into a bit more depth with it, which is that don't wait for anybody to give you the authority to do something cool. Go and do it yourself. And that's really a mantra for me now. And it's only been sort of a week or so since I read about this quote, but it's really inspired me to do really cool stuff in all my lessons. And one of the first things, really, that I would say when you're doing this is there's a lot of these things that we read on Twitter and we think are really cool, and I don't know about you, but I spend ages then sorting out a lesson that's all involved around one new cool idea, and the kids look at me like I'm absolutely insane, and I have to push it through and push it. They get into it eventually, but one of the things that I found works really well is just use starters. Don't build your lesson about something cool just because you've seen it once and you thought it looked amazing. Put it into a starter, put it into a plenary, put it into a short session that you can really use that cool idea and get the kids excited about it. And then if it works, bring it back again. And that's what's been successful for me. This haircut, by the way, not me, although I was very similar to it in the early 90s. A bit late. Build up your bank of cool stuff, build up your repertoire, share it on Twitter, I'm sure we all do. But the little skills, the little interesting things, my students love coming to the start of my lesson to see what cool, new, exciting thing we're doing that I've found in the last 24 hours. The second big thing is something I'm really passionate about, is that learning should be a dialogue. It should be a two-way street between the learner and you. It shouldn't just be you talking to them. We had an exercise in our school recently where we asked for examples of learning dialogues, and so many of them were just summaries of what they'd learned. Dialogues, really talking to the students and letting them talk back to you, give an idea about what they've done and what they think they're doing, is really powerful. Being transparent as well with everything, being transparent with not only learning objectives, but things like how you've assessed them, what the assessment criteria are. All that big list of things that you've got sitting on your desk that you're checking off and marking when you're going through students' work should be available to them. One of the big things I'm really pushing for is just let them be able to find out what their level is consistently, find out what grade they're on, leave it on the VLE, put it somewhere simple and obvious they can go and get. So when somebody does ask them, they don't need to know off the top of their heads, they can definitely go and find it. And that's what our Year 7s are really being pushed towards at the moment. Recording the conversations is something I'm working on at the moment. I'm trying to build a system to record all these impromptu, informal conversations you have with your students. Building a learning dialogue that you can record and that you can show to Ofsted, I think is probably the next step then, and making sure you've got something written down. These are three that are really important to me, and something I've started doing in my sixth-forms, on demand. I've sold it as marking on demand. So a student sends me a piece of work and I will mark it and return it to them within the hour. Some of my Year 13s took me quite literally and started complaining when I wasn't returning work to them at 4 o'clock in the morning. Interestingly, those students have really pushed their grades up. The mark on demand aspect, whereas you send to me, I'll mark it now and get it back to you with some feedback, worked really well. My Year 13s were so motivated, they really shot through all the work they had to do. Assessing on demand as well. Spending your time creating online assessment rather than messing around doing a new assessment every single time works wonders. I can't tell you how many times some of my Year 12s have resat the same online multiple choice test until they could get it perfect, just because they had a few spare minutes on a computer. And that's something I couldn't do if I hadn't spent the time in the first place building it. Learn on demand is also useful. What we don't do in our school is we never lock down any of our VLE courses. All our courses are open at any point. We've got some Year 7 students enrolled on Year 13 Java programming courses because they were interested in it, and they're submitting work for me to mark, which is a bit strange when I'm getting a Year 7's work and a Year 13's work, and the Year 7 is definitely getting an A and the Year 13's still a B. Good motivator though. Video equipment is also everywhere. I mean, I've got video camera on my phone, on my iPad. I just invested in a really small tripod mount, a gorilla stand that I can attach to anything, and I try and record practically everything now. It really inspires the students to work harder because you know they'll play it back later on, and probably when they're leaving in Year 11. Update the classics is an important thing. Textbooks, classic types of assessment, things like that, are always things that you would roll out, but print on demand. Companies that print books for you really quite cheaply is really handy. We've had a few done where we've got our own questions, our own materials, and links to our own VLE in. So the students have a textbook, they feel it's official, They quite like the written element of it, but it all links back to our own work. Also, I'd say that one of my important points is be realistic about the way in which we teach. One of my key assets is probably, I suppose, letting them use their phones and letting them be realistic about the skills they have in the real world. After all, there's not many jobs where you would turn up and then be forced to lock your phone away before you turn up for the day, like we do to some students. I'll be very quick with this because my picture of Bill Gates is very, very nice. Don't try and be a rock star. The rock star style lesson, you know what I mean? The one you roll up for Ofsted, the one that's amazing, all singing, all dancing, it's not a sustainable model. You can't do that every single lesson. Imagine some of your Year 7 kids, after 6 lessons, rock star lessons, they'd be absolutely knackered. They wouldn't be able to do a single thing. So you can't pull that out every single time, but aspects of it can make a lesson really exciting. Pace yourself well and try and use ICT as your industry does. Don't just use ICT for the sake of it, which is often a problem. And that's me done. Thank you.